How far have we come from matriarchy? Some scholars believe that the term only referred to the veneration of women as childbearers, but in some places they were indeed the leaders. Matriarchy also implied polyandry, or multiple husbands. The term harem is often associated with a collection of wives, but it can also refer to a collection of husbands. In some countries, harems are still permitted today. There are means to maintain such a harem, and they have been used by both men and women. In this video, we will discuss who, where, when, and why they kept harems. Scientists have found that in nature, females who mate with multiple males have more viable offspring. Their children are born larger and stronger, develop faster, are less prone to illness, and live longer. But centuries before scientists discovered this formula, female rulers had already put it into practice. Why is this conversation about agrarian societies? Agriculture evolved from gathering, an activity solely performed by women. Men with the first sapiens were often away hunting. Therefore, in places where agriculture proved more successful, the gender that sustained it, women, became the rulers. Matriarchy has been characteristic of Central and Eastern Europe, South America, the most fertile parts of Africa, South and Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Polynesia, and fertile valleys descending from the Tibetan Plateau and the Himalayas. In some of these territories, matriarchal traditions can still be traced to the present day. However, in the mentioned part of Europe, matriarchy was eradicated by Indo-Europeans. Polyandry also existed in completely arid regions, such as among the Berbers and in some southern African deserts. This indicates that the practice was not directly linked to patriarchy, but was about the best way to preserve offspring. Thus, a male harem was a necessity, while a female harem often served to complicate the ruler's life. The harem of Pharaoh Ankh II, created for his sons and their friends, falls outside the paradigm of a harem. The etymology of the word harem is worth noting. The monarchs of ancient Media, the first Median kingdom, are an example of a male harem. The northern third of Iran was inhabited by the same Iranian-speaking tribes that, before the arrival of the Turks, formed the population of northern Iran, Iranian Azerbaijan, and western Turkmenistan, as well as the ancient and historical regions of Balkh and Kashgar. The ancient kingdoms of the Near East called them Madai, and on their homeland they were known as Kion. They were the closest relatives of the clans that the Greeks called Sarmatians or Sauramatians. The western part of this ethnic community, prone to female societies and Amazons, penetrated Cappadocia. Herodotus wrote that the Amazons came from Cappadocia. It is worth noting that in ancient times, Cappadocia referred not only to the Turkish province, but also to the entire land of Asia Minor, adjacent to the Armenian highlands from the west. There is a hypothesis that the Kurds were born here as part of this ethnic community. The female marker of the genus constitutes half of the gene pool of the people who appeared in the south of the Urals. The Alans called them Samata or Sarmatians. The future Sauramatians took wives from the Kion, but with them, the culture of this very ancient Aryan community could have entered the Proto-Sarmatians. The first Median kingdom was located in a very fertile area where female leaders were able to create the first real state. Later, the population followed the example of the Persians and gave power to men. We know about the Amazons and the Sarmatians, but in northern Iran and among the Kurds, many unions have preserved the leading role of women. For example, the Kurds have the tradition of fighting for several spouses, not only the first Median queens, but all female rulers of the Eliv people of the same gene pool and, consequently, the same customs as the Kion, had the right to have several husbands. The same was true for the kingdom of the Ephthalites, or the White Huns in the original, the kingdom of the Abdal, the people of Abdal, the founder of the state. This refers to the areas of modern Central Asia, Afghanistan, and northern India. 1,000 years passed from the first media, but nothing changed in this ethnic environment. Polyandry remained a legal practice. In the life of these places, power belonged to men, but a woman who had several husbands wore a hat with horns, and the number of horns corresponded to the number of her official spouses. What is interesting about the Gilan region in northern Iran? The Gilaks are descended from the Gil tribe, which was part of ancient Media. To this day, women have the right to give consent or say no during a marriage proposal. At a meeting dedicated to the betrothal, the bride can set the ransom herself, and she often does. There are hypotheses that the Gilaks once practiced polyandry, or that women chose their husbands. Islam did not completely eradicate the ancient traditions of the region of Iran, formerly known as Media. Persia, which became a part of Media, had a strong influence on its western neighbor. The utensils and weapons of the Median kings can be found in the palaces of some Turkish sultans. There were also male harems because the female relatives of the ruler also wanted to indulge themselves. The female rulers of ancient Nigeria, in memory of the female leaders, also had male harems, especially in the territory of modern Nigeria, particularly in the north, among the Igbo people. Traditionally, Igbo women had several husbands. The same is true for the Maasai in modern Kenya and northern Tanzania. Perhaps these women were never monarchs or just elders, but each of them always had the right to have not one, but as many husbands as she wanted. Here the matter was probably not about matriarchy, but about the fact that the natives noticed the success of polyandry. The queens of the Canary Islands, the Guanches, were completely destroyed by the Spanish, leaving an unsolved mystery. Although their language was close to that of the Berbers, they were tall, white-skinned, and even blue-eyed. But there is more to this story. According to the records of monks and missionaries, women, not only rulers, could add a second partner at any time. This greatly irritated the Catholics, and even today, such a delicate moment in Western Europe would make one think of a woman as promiscuous. This promiscuity was one of the reasons for the destruction of the Guanches. The queens of the Inca Empire, the Capaya, lived in Tumbes. In addition to the characteristics typical of a royal title, they had the right to choose their husbands, determining their number. The men they chose could not refuse them, and they had to satisfy all their whims. The Spaniards recorded that all the Kalanay Tumbes had male harems, and their assortment was replenished with enviable regularity. Polyandry was also practiced in the Polynesian islands, and in places where male harems were part of the Indo-European tradition. The archipelago, which European geographers named Polynesia, was called Peterbuck by a British writer. On the Polynesian islands of Tonga, a sister occupies a higher social position than her brother. On the Fiji Islands, a husband is essentially a guest in his wife's house, and the children belong to their maternal uncle. This suggests that the status of females was also higher here. Moreover, when the husbands of one woman were not brothers, they became brothers before marrying the same woman. Moving away from Oceania, the term marriage comes from an Indo-European root. Initially, the term did not mean marriage, but a union. The term fraternity comes from the same root, meaning brother in Christ, and is a purely Sarmatian concept. A European named Faramura, in honor of female societies, called a corner of the Amazon Amazonia and its capital, Vedasuar, stood on the site of modern-day Cheboksary. Among the Sarmatians, a woman chose her husband, not the other way around. The term Amazon comes from the Greek amos, meaning without breasts. According to Greek myths, each girl had her breasts removed for the convenience of shooting. In the modern Chuvash language, ama is a whole range of female concepts. The ending zos, or zone, was probably introduced by other neighboring peoples, while the Savramat themselves probably used the designation ama. Names beginning with ama are common among them. What do you think about it? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion is very important to me. Don't forget to give me a like if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.